Today we're looking at the Road Glide Special. Is this bike now worth buying with the new designs that are coming out? And of course, this was the year where they redesigned the CVO Road Glide and the CVO Street Glide. And of course, that styling is going to be coming to the Road Glide. So should you buy one of the older Road Glides or wait on the new one? All I can tell you is from my experience with this bike, which I've had now for a year, I'm going to tell you the good and the bad and just give it to you straight up. Now, big thanks to American Biker for letting me come out and review all kinds of bikes. I actually bought this one from them. And if you need anything, come talk to Rob if it's a used Harley or a new Indian or whatever you need. So big thanks again to those guys. I think, one of the biggest surprises to me, I knew that it would ride different than a Street Glide. I had my Street Glide Special for, I don't know, a year and a half, something like that. But one of the bigger surprises switching from the Street Glide to the Road Glide is the way that fairing responds when you turn the wheel. It is wildly different. It makes a difference doing slow speed stuff. It makes a difference just riding in a straight line. When you're up to speed on the interstate, on the Street Glide, you get quite a bit, and I say quite a bit, that's relative to the Road Glide. You get quite a bit of movement with that fairing, and while they've made improvements for it to cut better through the wind, it still does not cut better than the Road Glide. The Road Glide is extremely comfortable and smooth in a straight line, going through the mountains. And I've took this thing through windy roads up in Tennessee. I've done obviously a lot of straight roads, a lot of highway riding, and this bike really it can do it all. And that's one thing that I want people to be able to take away from this video. Even with the new design, the old ones with the 114, you can do so much with it, right? You're not stuck at that 114. They obviously make kits, straight from Harley that you can buy even if you want to upgrade it to a stage 3 or 4. And so it's a really good starting point, especially if you want to do motor work, because the bugs have already been worked out. Now, I'm not against the new machine. I'm not against the new Road Glide or the Street Glide. I think they're cool. I like them. I like the way they look. They did a good job, in my opinion. I haven't ridden one or got one, up close on one yet, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, they do look good, but you will inevitably have issues out of the new motor and maybe even some of the new electronics and stuff that they've done. And so if you're somebody, you're like, man, I just don't even want to deal with that. I want to get into something that I know is going to be reliable, that I can do motor work on and really make it into something that I really love. The 114 and specifically the older Road Glides are a great way to start. One thing about these bikes is they got weight, and you feel all that weight off the kickstand. But what it does do for you is when you're on the highway, this thing just cruises, man. It's got a really decent suspension setup, probably worth upgrading, to be honest with you, but from the factory, it's not bad. Now, you'll have to excuse all the things that I've done with this bike. I'm really thinking about how this bike was stock, not how it is right now, okay? And so a lot of this stuff I have added recently, so I still have a good idea how it actually rode when it was stock. You have a 6-gallon tank, you have the stretch bags, forward controls. This one has a heel shifter on it, and it's got the 114, which is a really torquey motor. So you're not going to be beating sport bikes in a straight line, but you will be able to probably pull about 20 sport bikes if you wanted to behind you. So it is a torquey machine, and it will get up to speed relatively quickly. You have a good amount of distance that you can go with the 6-gallon tank. Of course, stock, you have the Boom GTS. Now, my whole audio system was done by Volunteer Audio in Tennessee, so I have none of that stuff still on the bike. And so the audio is not great from the factory. I'll just go ahead and say that. That's something that you will definitely want to upgrade. But it's nice because you do have your touch screen here, but you still have your analog gauges right here as well. Keyless ignition, no quick locking bags, I should say. You still got to get down there with the barrel key. The stretch bags and the Special itself is going to work for you in one way and be a detriment in another. So if we compare this to a Road Glide Limited, just say, The Limited has a taller windshield. This one has a sleek windshield. The Limited also has a little bit more suspension rise, I think 1 extra inch, and so it's going to be more plush on the road compared to this one. But you get the aesthetics of the Special that I really enjoy. Now, another thing that this bike does really well is if you want to carry a passenger, y'all have a lot of room between you. So what I did is I actually put the reach seat on this bike, so that puts me a little lower to the ground, because even stock from the factory, I cannot totally flat foot this bike. And with the weight, sometimes when you want to back up, if you can't flat foot, you know, it can get a little silly sometimes. So I wanted to be a little bit closer to the ground. But either way, man, for you and your passenger, y'all both have a really nice setup. Now, one thing about the Road Glide too is that you have a really wide tank, right? You got a 6-gallon tank. But the way they've designed it is you don't have that tank really interfering with your legs at all. And so even though you do have a much bigger tank than some of the other bikes, it's really a non-issue. Now, there are some things I don't like from the factory. I don't like the fact that it comes with halogen bulbs. That bothers the crap out of me, especially on a $28,000 or $30,000 machine when these are brand new. And of course, there's things like the handlebars. Although they're relatively comfortable when you compare it to other motorcycles, until I went on a long trip, handlebars were something I didn't even realize I needed until that trip. And so they do kind of force you to not really be hunched down, but it forces you to hold on to the bars more than if you have a decent aftermarket bar setup. So that is something that you'll want to change. And look, we all change our motorcycles. I don't know of anybody that has a stock motorcycle, but these are some of the most important ones that I've found. Your handlebars, of course your exhaust, seating, and your audio. Now, one thing about it, man, when I had my Street Glide, I did less modifications to that bike, but I never did a long road trip on that bike like I did on this one. So as far as like customizations and things that I would add onto a Road Glide, now knowing what I know, I've made huge changes to this bike over the past 6 months. And so that's one advantage you have with the older design as well. Companies already have this stuff out. You don't have to wait on nothing. Now, the new Harley will catch up quickly as far as the aftermarket. But again, if you don't want to wait on that stuff and you want to customize to your heart's desire, this is a good machine to do it on. So when it comes to the ultimate touring slammed bagger machine, I think the Road Glide still is worth every single penny. It really is a fantastic bike. If money wasn't an option, I'd go with the new one, because I like things that are different and new, and that just, it excites me. I like the aesthetic of the new one. I haven't ridden one, but Harley does a really decent job most of the time of coming out with a new design, a new motor, all of that. And typically they're pretty reliable. But the thing with the 114 is they've ironed out the oil pump issues and some of the things that plagued this motor when it first came out. So if you want something is going to be reliable, you're going to save money on, and the aftermarket support is obviously already there, the older Road Glide is definitely a good buy. And so I really enjoy this motorcycle. So far, it's been my favorite motorcycle I've ever owned. There's my opinion, man. If you like this video, maybe you'll like one of these other ones that I've done here recently. And if you like what I do, consider subscribing. See y'all in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.